Hello, welcome to week 1 of quarter 4. This is also week 1 of hybrid learning. We're officially done with distance learning, and this, of course, is going to be the video for if you are absent on either one or both of our synchronous days, depending on your cohort. So this is going to be what we're doing in class, and I'm going to still record these videos and upload them because I know that you may or may not be absent on synchronous days for whatever reasons, doctor's appointments, and so you can still look for these. It'll look slightly different in terms of what we're doing because, of course, we are going to be in person, but for the most part, everything we're going to be doing will remain digital until the end of the year. So this is week 1. To start, if you are in class for our synchronous days, this will apply to you. So we're going to be creating name tents. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you were absent. So unless you were absent on only one day, then you don't need to worry about this. So we're creating name tents. You're going to write your first name, your initial if you want, if there's more than one with the same name in the same class. And then on the back, you're going to write one thing you want to do this summer and one thing you are really loving lately. And this is going to help me, at least in the beginning, with just trying to remember who is who, because even though I get to see you in person, you're going to be wearing a mask, I'm going to be wearing a mask, and your pictures on Synergy are actually almost 2 years old now. So you look different, and it'll just help me figure out who is who with the masks. So name tents are going to be first. The thing that we will be doing differently with our attendance question, we're still going to have them. Instead of typing in the chat like you normally would, you are now going to respond when I call out names. So I'm going to go through our roster. I'll call out your name, and when you hear it, respond. Instead of saying here or present, tell me the response to our question. So our question for first synchronous day, which character are you today? Who do you feel like based off of the pictures you see? So you can tell me a name, a number, and of course that'll apply when you're in person, but I'll just kind of describe how that's going to work. Okay, so this week is going to be a smooth start. We're going to take it slow with what we're doing in this class and just like getting back into the swing of things in general, specifically for you in your class, because you are the freshman class. You haven't had a true introduction to being a Titan on campus, and so we're going to be doing a lot of introductory things to just kind of get familiar, get us welcome into the building and feel like we've got our feet on some solid ground. So we're going to do some welcome back info. We're not going to jump right into our unit, but we are going to start in the fact that I'm going to give you some really important information to kind of set the scene for us for our nonfiction unit. And then you have 2 asynchronous assignments. They are incredibly short. It'll probably take you all of 5 minutes altogether to fill these out. So one of them is a Google form, and one is just a post you're going to do on Canvas, and I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. So first off, I want to say, take a breath. I know that there's a mixed range of emotions as to what we're going through, what we're feeling about this transition. It's been over a year since you've been in person, and since any of us have been in person, and it's going to be different, especially with the COVID protocols and what we're going to be doing to end this school year. So I want to say, just remember that we are in this together. We're all doing this for the first time. Teachers, students, families, everybody's doing this for the first time. And so we need to just give ourselves some grace and give each other grace, and know that if we make mistakes, if we mess up, that's okay, because we've never done this before, and we're not going to be experts on transitioning from distance learning to hybrid learning because we've never done it. So give yourself grace, ask questions. They're always welcome. I'll do my best to answer whatever questions you do have. So let's get to it. Okay, so to start, let me see if I can get out of here. So I have told you this all last week. There's a team of teachers, myself included, that have created a kind of welcome back thing for every class period on your first day back in class. So for Tuesday, Thursday, that would be Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, that would be Wednesday of this week. So you don't see period 1 here because I don't have a period 1, but to give you an idea of what this is going to look like. So we have slides that we're going to be going through, and essentially we're going to be covering just different topics: how to find your way around the building, who do you contact if you have a question about this. So these are going to be slides that we're going to be going through. I'm going to be watching some videos from peers in school talking about different things. So if you have questions about this, let me know, but I'm not necessarily going to go through all this in our video. Okay, so let's go back. So that's what we're going to be doing the first half of class on Tuesday and Wednesday for your first day back. So welcome to our nonfiction unit. I'm really excited about this. I told you that I was really excited about it last week, and I still am. We're going to be doing a nonfiction unit, and we are going to read a whole class novel together by Trevor Noah called Born a Crime: Stories from a South African Childhood. This is a autobiography, and I think I said this last week. It is one of my top 10 favorite books. I read it last year, and it's incredible. So I'm super excited that we get to read it together to end the school year. So like I said, it's a autobiography. It's amazing. It's really fascinating. There's a lot of really funny parts, a lot of really funny stories that Trevor talks about as just his experience growing up as a kid in South Africa. And we are going to focus on these 2 questions as we go through this unit, because this is going to take us to the end of the year. We're going to ask ourselves repeatedly, to what extent is our identity shaped by culture and by society? And how does empathy change the way we view others? So we're going to be looking at those questions and ideas through the lens of Trevor Noah and his experience. We're going to be looking at a few other authors and speakers and different texts that they have. And I think it'll be a really cool question or questions to answer by the end of this quarter. So where do you get your copy? There's multiple ways that you can read this. When all else fails, there is a digital PDF linked here and also on Canvas that is free. It's the entire book. It's really, really easy to navigate. So I would assume that most of us would be using this. If for some reason you just want to get away from your screen for a little bit and you really, really want to get a physical copy, we have 8 physical hard copies in our library available for checkout. So if that is of interest to you, please let me know. Obviously, we don't have very many, so please let me know, and I would love to get you connected with our librarian, Mrs. Pizzizo, to get your copy. And then please note this is not required at all, but if you're interested in just owning your own copy, it's available on Amazon for about $7. So I know some of you that love reading and you would love to have your own copy and want to buy it. Just know that it's really not that expensive, but that is not a requirement at all. I would assume that most of us would be either doing the digital PDF or checking out from the library. And then just to give you an idea of how this is going to work, so this is a whole class novel. We're reading it together. We are going to split the reading up. Half of the reading will be done in class in our synchronous days. I built time in for that during our schedule. And then the other half will be done on your own during your asynchronous time. So just be aware that we're going to kind of split it like that. And I'm hoping that this will help us stay on track. What assignments are we going to have? Let me tell you. We have 2 that are going to be assignments that you work on continually throughout the unit, and I'm going to talk about in just a moment what those 2 things are. So we have Golden Lines and Patricia's Advice. There's going to be other assignments that are going to occur. I just can't give you a full list because that would be really long, but it'll be things that we do in addition to the reading and in addition to these 2 things. And then you are going to have a final project, and these 2 things are going to help with that. So please don't put these 2 assignments on the back burner in your mind. I promise you, if you keep up on it as we're reading, you are going to have just so much ready for you and waiting for when you start your final project. So our reading schedule, like I said, is going to be split. So we're not actually going to start reading the book officially until next week. If you want to get a jump start on it, you totally can. But we're not going to start it until next week because this week we're going to take things slow. So next week, during our synchronous days, we're going to work through chapter 1. And then the asynchronous day, you will focus on chapter 2. And just so you know, the page numbers, if you're using the digital PDF, for some reason that one does not have page numbers, so just go by the chapter number itself. If you have a physical copy, obviously you can see the chapter numbers, but that's something to be aware of. Okay, so speaking of golden lines and Patricia's advice, let's look at what those things are. So what are golden lines? I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. Maybe you've heard it in another English class before, maybe you haven't, but this is what a golden line is. It's simply a line or sometimes a very small passage like a paragraph that just stands out to you when you're reading a text. It could be in a poem, it could be in a novel, it could be in an article in the New York Times, it could be in song lyrics, it could be in a piece of dialogue in a movie script. It really can be anywhere. And what I mean by stand out is this. It could stand out to you for multiple reasons. You're able to empathize with what is being said, just the content of itself. Maybe it just makes you think differently about something in a way you never have before. It kind of makes you pause and go, oh, I haven't even considered that. That's really cool. Or sometimes a golden line is just written really beautifully. The writing itself is really amazing. So there's multiple ways. Sometimes you'll find a golden line that all three of these things apply to it, and sometimes it's just one. But it's going to be something that is personal to you and something that stands out to you in your own perspective. And like I said, you can find these anywhere, any type of writing. It's not just books and essays. Writing is involved in so many things. You know, or you should know now, especially if you had me last quarter, that we use lots of movies and TV shows. We talk about that, and there's writing involved with that. There has to be scripts for those shows to work. So those are golden lines. If you have any questions further about what this is, please let me know. We do have a wall in the back of the classroom that has some examples that you can see, but I'll show you a few just to give you an idea of what I mean. So this is from Jason Reynolds' book, Look Both Ways. He lived in his own world, but it was a world full of windows that everyone could see into. That was a golden line to me. These are ones that I've found personally. If you've watched WandaVision lately, you are probably familiar with this line. What is grief if not love persevering? Lots of people quoted that after that episode came out. The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. But I think diseases have no eyes. They pick with a dizzy finger. Anyone, just anyone. That stood out to me because I could empathize with that line. A Star Wars A New Hope, I've shared this with you last quarter. You're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view. So again, golden lines are going to be things that really stand out to you personally in your own perspective. And what you see as a golden line, specifically in Born a Crime, might be different than your peer. And that's totally fine, as long as you have reasoning as to why you think it is. So those are golden lines. You are going to be keeping track of these in a Google Doc that I have created. It's a chart. It'll be super simple and easy to use, and just as you're reading, if you come across a golden line, which I'm sure you will, you're going to write that down to help you with our final project. Okay, so Patricia's advice. This is the other assignment we're going to be doing in tandem as we're reading. So Patricia is Noah's mom, Trevor Noah's mom. And throughout the book, you're going to find that she offers him lots of advice and lessons as he's growing up, things that she's learned, things that she shares with him. And so you're going to collect these lessons, pieces of advice throughout the book via a Google Doc that I've created as well. It's got a chart, so you're going to use page number if you have that, the chapter, what the actual quote is, and then any type of thoughts that you may have that you want to write down to help you kind of remember what came to mind when you saw that. So you're going to be keeping track of that. These questions right here, you're not going to answer in the chart. We're going to answer that at the end of the quarter. So thinking about which pieces of advice seemed to benefit Trevor, which ones didn't. Is there maybe a specific piece of advice she gave that really gives a good picture as to their relationship of mother and son? Did the advice impact him and his identity, and how did it do that? So those questions are going to be things that we're going to answer at the very end of the quarter. But for now, all you're got to do is track those quotes, those pieces of advice and wisdom that we hear Patricia give her son Trevor throughout the book. All right, so Canvas. This is your asynchronous work for week 1. 2 things. The first, tell me which way you're reading. All I need you to do is tell me how you're going to read the book. Tell me, are you going to use a digital PDF? Are you going to go check out a copy? Are you going to buy your own? Tell me how you're going to do that, and that's literally all I need from you. So you're just going to write a post in Canvas. And then the other thing is a Google form that will help me just kind of see where you're at currently, and if there's something that I can help you with, something that would make this transition better, so maybe some new information that you need to share with me to make me aware of. So those are the 2 things you're going to do. All right, so that was day 1 of our synchronous days for week 1. So now we're on to day 2. And we're going to start with a warm-up writing prompt. So I want you to take a moment and pause this video, and I want you to respond to this quote. So this is from Nelson Mandela. If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. So I want you to respond to these questions. What do you think Nelson Mandela means in this quote? What is he trying to say? Or any other thoughts that you may have. So go ahead, pause this video, take a moment to respond, and we'll keep going. All right, so Nelson Mandela, really quickly, he was one of the presidents of South Africa, and he is a very, very important figure in the movement to end apartheid, which we're going to look at today. So just be aware of that. I'm sure you might have heard of his name. So again, welcome to our nonfiction unit. Before we get into some background information, I just need to give you some background information on something else that's going to help us with this unit. So first of all, what is a genre? A genre is simply categories of text. There are different ways to write, and different genres have different purposes. So we're going to be looking at nonfiction. Nonfiction means it's not made up. It's all true. It's true stories, accurate facts. And the purpose of nonfiction genre is to educate, is to learn about the real world, about people that have really lived, and to see how that looks in really all different categories of different things. So nonfiction. Fiction, meaning, things that are made up, creative. Poetry, which we just looked at last quarter. And drama. And these are definitely not exhaustive, but these are some of the main ones that we look at in English literature. So with nonfiction, you're going to see things like biographies, autobiographies, memoirs. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Fiction, you'll see things like sci-fi, realistic fiction, fantasy, romance. These are all things that are not true. They're just made up stories created by the author. With poetry, of course, we looked at, or we talked about it briefly, sonnets, haikus. There's different types of poetry. And then with drama, you have things like plays, musicals, film, animation. All of these things involve writing, and they all involve the different tools and techniques and things that we talk about in English language arts. So let's talk about nonfiction subgenres. Again, nonfiction means it's writing or cinema that is about facts, real events, real people, real stories, things that are not made up. A biography is a written history of a person's life. So the person that is the story is focusing on, it's not written by that person because that would be an autobiography. So if I were to write a story about my own life, that would be an autobiography because it's my life. If I was to write a story about George Lucas, that would be in his life, that would be a biography because it's somebody else's life. And then lastly, we have a memoir. And a memoir can be written about the person themselves, written by them. So I could write a memoir about my life, or it could be a memoir written by somebody else. But a memoir is not necessarily the whole life, it's just kind of a specific part of somebody's life or a specific experience. So those are things that we will be looking at throughout this unit. So what I want you to do now is pause this video and watch this one linked in the slides. This is from John Green. He does Crash Course, and I want you to just kind of pay attention to what he has to say about how and why we read, and then we'll talk about it. So go ahead and pause this video and watch this one. Okay, so one golden line that I want you to note about that video. John Green said, reading is always an act of empathy. It's always an imagining of what it's like to be somebody else. And this connects very nicely with our second essential question. How does empathy change the way we view other people? So no matter what you're reading, whether it's nonfiction, fiction, poetry, drama, a great purpose for every single type of writing is to help you imagine what it's like to be somebody else. Because oftentimes we're going to read things that are just different from our own personal experiences in our own life, and you will see that that's going to be a great focus for our unit in this quarter. So what I want you to do now, if you are viewing this video because you were absent on this day, email me, let me know, and I can get you a digital copy of this, but we are going to fill this out. This is an anticipation guide. So this is going to give me an idea as to what you think about these statements. So you're going to go through these statements and you're just going to put on this side if you agree or disagree, just kind of your gut reaction to the statements. And then we're going to do this again after reading the book at the very end to kind of see where we're at and see if something has changed at all. Okay, so let's get into some background context, because this story that we're going to be reading takes place in a completely different continent, a different country, and we need to learn a few things before we get to the actual reading that's going to help set the scene for us. So Trevor Noah grew up in South Africa, and I just wanted to give you this visual to show you that Africa, also to remind you, Africa is not a country, it is a continent made up of multiple countries. And it's massive. This is a really good visual to show you just in terms of the land itself, how big it is. It looks like, based off of these calculations, you can fit Europe, Alaska, the United States, China within this continent itself. So it's really, really big. And there's a lot of countries within Africa itself. So this is a map of all the different countries. Some of them are large, some of them are small. And just like in the United States, the states themselves are going to be a little bit different, but they're all on that same landmass, the same continent. And we are going to focus specifically on South Africa because that is where Trevor Noah grew up and that's where the story takes place. So, what do we need to know about South Africa? Well, there is a population roughly of 50.7 million people. There are 11 official languages, which is really crazy because a lot of countries around the world might have maybe one or two, maybe three official languages, but there's 11. So that tells you kind of what the diversity is like. And then there's 3 capitals, Cape Town, Pretoria, and Bloemfontein. I'm not sure I pronounced that right, but there's 3 of them circled here. So what you can do in these slides is you can click on this link. And I would encourage you to do this, to pause this video and do this. This will take you to just Google Maps, Google Earth, and you can zoom in and just kind of move the map around and take a look around and see what you notice about the different cities. You can zoom in. I'm sure you could go and look at maybe like street views, things like that. So just take a moment and kind of just explore through Google what South Africa looks like. Okay, so South Africa. There's a lot of diversity here. Specifically within this story about Trevor Noah growing up, he grew up in Soweto, which is about 34 minute drive from Johannesburg. I'm sure that if you've heard of any cities in South Africa, you probably heard of Johannesburg because it's pretty big. Within Soweto itself, there's a population of about 1.3 million people, which is that's a big number. It's not like Salem, it's a way bigger. And something important to note about Soweto itself is that it was created during the 1930s as a way for the government to segregate people via their homes and their neighborhoods and where they lived. So Soweto was a township, is what they called it, a black township where all the black families were moved to live there during that time. So we'll see as we start reading next week. Trevor Noah is going to talk about that in the very first chapter or two. So what I want you to do now, I gave you some background information very briefly about just South Africa and some important things to note, but I want you to take about 10 minutes. I'm going to give you time to pause this video. I would give you 10 minutes in class to do this, and you're going to, on your computer, explore these links. You're going to click through them, read a little bit, look and see what you find, and I want you to just write down through all of these 5 things that you learned, 5 takeaways to represent what you learned looking at these links. What do we know about apartheid? Anything about South Africa? So I want you to take a minute or 10 minutes, I should say, pause this video and do that and write your 10 or 5 takeaways here. All right, so that was our introduction to Born a Crime. We're now going to look at our first chapter, Friday. So this is, I would say, a sci-fi dystopian novel. This is called Scythe by Neal Shusterman, and it's really good. I would say that if you are a fan of The Hunger Games, Divergent, you'll probably really like this one. So some information on what this book is. Scythe takes place in, I would say, America in the future, during a time where well, I guess I'll just read this to you. It would make more sense. So, a world with no hunger, no disease, no war, no misery. Humanity has conquered all those things and has even conquered death. Now scythes are the only ones who can end life, and they are commanded to do so in order to keep the size of the population under control. Citra and Rowan are chosen to be apprenticed to a scythe, a role that neither of them want, and these teenagers must master the art of taking life, knowing that the consequence of failure could mean losing their own. They learn living in a perfect world comes only with a heavy price. So the whole point of this story is that in order to control the population, because now they've figured out a way for humans to just live forever, they have to have these positions called being a scythe where you glean, that's what they call it, but you essentially control the population by killing people. And so it's definitely worth the read if you love sci-fi dystopian novels. So I'm not going to read it to you in this video, but if you click on the slide here, it'll take you to the PDF download of the first chapter, and you can take a look at that and read it yourself. So let's see here. All right, that is all I have for you for week 1. If you have any questions, please email me and let me know. I would love to help you. But I'm so excited that we're back in person, and I think that this will be a really good way to end the year. So have a great rest of your day, your week, and I will see you soon.